Hello, my name is David Bozward. I'm the head of the School of Business and Entrepreneurship. In this session, I want to talk to you about the flow of sustainable capital. This is very important for entrepreneurs. Capital is what we use to start businesses, and therefore understanding what capital is available to us is fundamental for starting a successful entrepreneurial venture. What do I call or define entrepreneurship? Within the course, we have a course definition. This is entrepreneurship is finding and developing opportunities to create value. What is important here is value. We're not talking about profit, but we're talking about different and diverse value. That this may be a social value, maybe natural value, it may be all sorts of value that we create in a business, and hopefully some of that value we've given to a customer. So entrepreneurship is about finding and developing opportunities for that value. So what capital have we got available? We define 5 different forms of capital, of which financial capital is one of them. So in the newspapers you might read that capital and finance are almost the same thing. So normally in this session I'd get you to talk in pairs and talk about what are the other forms of capital, and we would then get you to come to the whiteboard and add the capitals that you think should be there, and we discuss it in the class and therefore come up with a consensus of what capitals we would have available. But as this is an online lecture, we won't do that. Here are the 5 forms of capital that we have, and I'm going to address these from the left hand side, the cultural capital first. Underneath cultural capital we have social capital. Social capital is the friends and the society that you have available to you, and friends and the society and the community that you have will support you in starting a business. So therefore it's one of the key capitals to start off with. Secondly, there is ethics and values. Ethics and values people will buy into, and therefore the ethics and the values that you have as a business will be important to other people. They'll have empathy with you, and therefore it's an important capital to have. Thirdly, there is probably one that you don't really recognize so readily. It's artifacts. Sometimes people have artifacts, so this could be if you're selling, let's say, second-hand motorcycles or old tractors. It might not be worth very much money in pure scrap terms, but because it might have won the TT race in 1960, it would be worth a lot more money, and therefore it could be an important capital moving forward. So artifacts have value. The second form of capital we're talking about is financial. Here we have debt, so I can borrow money to start a business. We have equity. I can get people to buy shares in my business and I give them a percentage of the business. I could have trading, which is basically I could take some equipment from somebody and that they would invoice me and I would then pay them later on. Or we could have working capital, which is basically money that I've got in the bank, and we'd have a cash flow and we'd work out the cash flow. The third form of capital is intellectual, and here we have human capital, and this is the knowledge, the education, the skills, the attitude and the experiences of the people that work in my business and around my business. Secondly, there we have structural. And structural capital is about the relationships that we have both within and outside the business, the processes that we have within our business, and also the innovation that we have, the intellectual property that we have inside our business. The fourth form of capital is manufactured. Here we split it into physical and software. We might have machineries that we use for manufacturing our goods and services. but we also may be using a lot of software. So the fact that I'm recording this video now on a piece of software is some manufactured capital that I could use to form a business. And the fifth capital is natural capital. Here we split it into renewable, so these could be animals and crops and water. Non-renewable, which would be things like minerals and oil and things that we dig out of the ground that we don't renew. And finally there is environmental service. And these are the climate, the hydro water cycle, and things like the soil. And without a good environment, then we won't necessarily be able to create a successful business because people become ill. So these are the 5 forms of capital that we have available to us to start a business. So these 5 forms of capital are shown on the left hand side. And then within the business, we will have to create a business with some inputs and some outcomes. And within this business, we would have a mission, some vision, and values. The values we've already talked about. And that business would have a business model. Normally we have one business model, sometimes we may have 2 or 3. But around that business model, we would have some corporate governance. And the corporate governance would be based on our values, our vision, and our mission. We would have some risk, we would have the propensity for a certain type of risk, and we'd have certain opportunities. And to develop that, we would then have a strategy to utilize the opportunities that we have. And this will require us to allocate resources and also to have leadership. We need to have a management structure and a leadership within the business to make sure that we achieve our goals. And therefore, at the end there, we have some form of outlook. So a business there would have some input, some activities that we just talked about, some outputs and some outcomes. And the outcomes, hopefully, would then be in the form of capital. So they could be in the form of cultural, financial, intellectual, manufactured, or natural. Now, for a successful business, we need to have it to be sustainable. So the bottom of the diagram there, you can see sustainable development. And this is a loop that goes round. So when we put things out, we need to have things going back. We can't keep depleting from one area and expecting it to come back. So the UN has come up with a series of sustainable development goals. Here they are, there's 17 of them. Now normally in the lecture I'd go and introduce each one of these in quite some detail, and I think you may have already seen some of these in the classrooms previously. So these 17 are really important to analyse what are going to be used in your business and which ones are critical. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of how this fits into the previous diagram, I've put the boxes in there so you can see which of the 17 sustainable development goals are applicable to each of the capitals that we're using inside our business, and therefore to make sure we identify which ones we are depleting and which ones we need to take care of. Of course, all this is within the context of an entrepreneur. So who is an entrepreneur? Well, they're an individual that's running his or her own business. An entrepreneur demonstrates enterprising approaches and attributes such as creativity, vision, responsiveness to opportunity, and ambition for business growth, which are distinct from business skills and knowledge. So we at the School of Business and Entrepreneurship aim to teach you how to become an entrepreneur. Even if you don't want to start your own business, I believe that these attributes such as creativity, vision, responsiveness to opportunity, and ambition for business growth are core employability skills that we should teach you. That's the end of my talk today. If you had any questions, We have an online session later on, which you're welcome to attend, and I'm always available on internet or telephone call. My name is David Bozward. I'm the head of the School of Business and Entrepreneurship, and thank you very much for listening.